This week on the Communicators, guests from Wilmington, North Carolina, discuss the area's final steps as 5 commercial broadcast television stations become the first in the country to switch to all digital signals.
The skyline of St. Paul, Minnesota, this week on the Communicators. Not our typical Communicators setting, but as we are at the Republican National Convention, we are basing our show from here. However, if you were to go 1,400 miles southwest, you would end up in Wilmington, South Carolina, North Carolina. The point of where we're talking about is the transition date for digital television. Wilmington was selected as the first area in the United States for commercial television stations to switch their signals from analog to digital as a test market to see if there was anything to be learned and applied for the rest of the nation. This week on the Communicators, we're going to talk to several folks involved in that transition in Wilmington and get their perspective for the impending date, which takes place on September 8th. Our first guest on the phone with us is Luis Sigalos. He's with the FCC. He's the Consumer Affairs Outreach Chief. Mr. Sigalos, how ready are you for this transition?
We are ready. As a matter of fact, having a meeting this afternoon with the broadcasters just to ensure that all final preparations are in place. Also going to discuss some weather conditions that may be heading our way in the form of Hurricane Anna.
Talk about that hurricane, and what are you guys talking about in light of that? And is it going to affect if this transition does take place on the 8th?
Well, basically all along, knowing that this area is in the path of hurricanes traditionally, although they don't come that often, we had always planned that at the deadline it would be a ceasing of analog programming, not actually a ceasing of the analog signal until later on in the season when we are sure that everybody has successfully made the transition. So basically, what's in place is the fact that if there is an emergency and there is emergency programming to cover a weather event, we will have the analog channels ready to broadcast that news. As far as the specific noon on Monday transition deadline, whether that should be changed due to weather, we'll be discussing that and the variables that need to be in place to do that. It could be that if on Monday at noon everybody has the power, everything is going fine, and we'll just make the transition. If it's inappropriate, if there's a lot of power outages, or if there's some form of evacuation, then we would we'd look at the noon time frame on the 8th.
Talk a little bit what the FCC has been doing in these months leading up to this transition date as far as their on-the-ground activities in Wilmington, and what's your role in it?
Well, I am the program manager. Basically, I sort of oversee all the people from the FCC that are working in this marketplace, and I also assist in the coordination with some of our key stakeholders, both in the government and industry, and from some of the constituency groups. We do have, since May 8th when the chairman made this announcement, we have had people assigned to the project here in Wilmington. This broadcast area consists of 5 counties, and we've had one person designated for each county so that they can meet and understand the needs of that county, work with the governments, work with other key stakeholders, and the rest. And they've been doing that religiously for the past many months. Today, just to give you an example, we have personally at the FCC conducted over 400 been participating, I should say, in over 400 events that could include presentations, sessions, town halls, meetings, train the trainer, assisting with sign-up and set-up of converter boxes, those types of things. And one other thing I'd like to mention is that we've been working very closely with the stakeholders in the industry, the broadcasters, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the DTV Coalition, the retailers, and the cable and satellite folks. And the broadcasters and the NAB have really been wonderful in the effort and the focus on this transition.
When you say you had a person assigned to each county, is that the extent of the team, or what's the manpower the FCC has applied to the complete manpower down there?
Well, we've had over 25 people rotate in and out of this marketplace. And we've had, for example, engineers. We wanted to check, reception issues, antenna issues, converter box issues. So just exploring the technical side. So there's been Media Bureau and engineers from the FCC who have worked closely with the industry on the technical side. We have had, and it's been of great benefit to have the chairman come down for multiple visits, along with other commissioners, Commissioner Cops, for example. And when they come, they help to draw media attention to the transition and sort of go over where we are and what consumers should be doing. So all told, and that's 25 different FCC staff members have been in this marketplace approximately, but on average it's been closer to 5 on a daily basis working.
You talked a little bit about concerns about the weather affecting what's going on. What else, if you had to define them as worries, what else worries you about this transition?
Well, I guess my concern now is, we've done a great job with and this is a great community to be in because the community has engaged, the governments, the grassroots organizations, and the rest, and the stakeholders. But when you talk about my worry sort of has remained the same, and that is an elderly person, somebody who's physically incapable of making change, who is in their home that are somehow not aware of it at this point in time. That's my worry, that this, that to help those people.
If you had to say percentage-wise, how much do you think the area around Wilmington and Wilmington proper, how educated are they, and are there still people who still have questions about what exactly happens on Monday?
Well, if I could identify those people who still have questions, we'd be working with them directly right now. I don't think that there are many. There's a lot of the feedback, you get, and this is, obviously from more educated consumers, is that we've saturated the market. The message has been heard, please, enough. But, this has always been an outreach effort that's been focused on some key constituent groups. It could be seniors, low income, non-English speaking, those types of folks. And so, we've done all we can to reach those people. And one thing I wanted to mention is that when we do make this transition, there is going to be a screen that goes up that sort of informs people, hey, if you're reading this on your TV, this message, please call this number, and we will help you. So they can call us at the FCC. We have in place here some grassroots organizations who have volunteered and contracted with us to go actually to their homes to help them finalize the process and set up a converter box.
I know that the FCC has websites available to educate folks about this process and the other groups involved as well. Are there specific last-minute efforts, town hall meetings, special programming, special meetings around the area, kind of as a last-minute effort as one last bit of education before the transition date? Well,
yes. I mean, and again, going back to the effort of the broadcasters here, they have the numbers of public service announcements. We've provided them with public service announcements. The National Association of Broadcasters has, and they have also done special programming. So they've been really ramping that up just to ensure that that's in place. The DTV Coalition, which the National Association of Broadcasters are a part of, have their DTV Trekker and sponsored many events over the last 2 weeks, sort of so you have a visual reminder. And so, it's all coming to a head, news coverage, earned media, that kind of stuff. It's all coming to a head. So we really feel like that the public education from everyone has been excellent and is following through to the very deadline.
One more question. What defines success after September 8th?
Well, to me personally, the success is that the consumers in this marketplace are prepared and they can watch TV after the transition, and they didn't really know when the transition even took place. So there are some, it's just inevitable that there are going to be some people that didn't take the actions necessary to make the transition, and so from them we hope to learn the lessons so that as we go forward with the national rollout and the national deadline, we can ensure that those lessons learned are applied.
Louis Sagalos with the FCC from Wilmington, North Carolina. Mr. Sagalos, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Again, we are spending this Communicators program talking about the first area of the country to transition its commercial broadcast signals from analog to digital. That is Wilmington, North Carolina. You heard Mr. Sagalos talk about the effort that broadcasters are making and have made during this entire process. Joining us now to give us that perspective is Jonathan Collegio, the DTV Transition Vice President for the National Association of Broadcasters. Mr. Collegio, first and foremost, what's been the ground activity as far as your group is concerned concerning this transition date?
Well, first, thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me on the program. The television stations here have just gone above and beyond in terms of doing what they need to do to educate their viewers about the switch to digital. I mean, television stations are running spots. They're running crawl messages that, that move on the bottom of a television screen, snipes, which are messages that pop up during programming. They've also done a lot out at the grassroots. I mean, one of the things that we knew when we were looking at how to get everybody educated about this for February 17th, 2009, from the broadcaster standpoint, is that it had to be a campaign that encompassed more than just television. It had to be more than just the airwaves. It had to be a multi-platform campaign that got people, at the television set, but also reach people from the ground. And the television stations here, WWAY, WILM, WECT, and WSFX, have just done a lot on the ground with local speaking engagements with folks. They've had a DTV Expo last week in downtown Wilmington. National Association of Broadcasters has that Trekker truck, which Louis was talking about. This is basically a big television truck that looks like a giant television set, and it goes to festivals and state fairs. And we were outside of Wilmington. You have to remember the Wilmington designated market area is 5 counties. Wilmington is the home to most of the population, but there are a lot of people that live 40, 50, 60 miles outside of Wilmington, and we wanted to be able to make sure that we reached them in person also. Now, you have to remember there are 2 of these trucks nationwide, which are going to 600 markets nationally, and we decided to spend a couple weeks here in Wilmington as well.
As far as when you talk to folks, what's the most common question they're asking you?
A lot of folks want to know whether this applies to them. But what we found from our polling and from the surveys that we've done is that by and large the message is catching on. 97% of folks around August 20th, we had a poll in the field. 97% knew that the digital television transition was underway. 77% could name the date, which was good, but it needs to be better. So we needed to get that date awareness up, and the television stations here are really focusing on making sure that people know about September 8th and also identifying who's affected. I mean, the Wilmington, North Carolina market, there are about 90% of the television viewers are either hooked up to cable or a satellite service. And by and large, cable and satellite subscribers don't have to take any different action. I mean, with some very, very limited special cases, by and large, cable and satellite subscribers don't have to take any action to upgrade to DTV. But folks that use antennas either on the rooftop or rabbit ears inside the house need to take that action. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to take people that aren't familiar, that haven't installed an antenna in a while, to identify exactly who it is that needs to make the upgrade to DTV.
The National Association of Broadcasters is one of many groups putting out commercials talking about the national transition date. Did you tailor-make a commercial or an advertising campaign to specifically talk about September 8th?
Well, what we did is we were able to go back to some spots that we had already produced and that we were actually in production in June, and we just cut Wilmington versions of them. So our spokesperson has a line that says, if you need to get ready by September 8th instead of February 17th, 2009. So there were a number of spots that we just created Wilmington versions of, and then there were a couple of spots that we did what we called a retrofit, where we went in, cut out, changed the graphics, did a new voiceover, that type of thing. But by and large, I mean, the important thing to consider here is that nationwide, the broadcast industry is spending to the tune of $1.1 billion educating folks about the DTV transition, and that includes all of these efforts that we've seen here in Wilmington as well.
When you talk with broadcasters, clearly you're talking with the broadcast stations involved. What kind of questions have they been fielding to you? We talked with Louis Sagalos about questions that they've been fielding to the FCC, but what are the broadcast stations themselves saying to you?
There's always the confusion, with a lot of folks that do I need to make this upgrade if I'm hooked up to a cable or satellite service? The other thing is that by and large, folks folks get that. But there are always all kinds of different special cases with DTV, and they're the minority, and they don't pop up very often, but sometimes they do. I mean, for example, there are a lot of folks who get a satellite service, but, you know, in some satellite services you have the option to pay for the local channels, and a lot of people don't pay for the local channels. They turn off their satellite service and use an antenna to get those local channels when they're hooked up to a satellite service. Well, if you still want to do that and you have an older television set, you need to upgrade with a converter box or get a new television set. So there are a lot of little cases in the DTV transition that need to be ironed out. But by and large, we feel like we're getting there, and the depth of understanding that we're seeing among viewers everywhere is increasing. So it's not only just an awareness about the DTV transition, but also, you know, an awareness that I'm affected by the DTV transition, and an awareness of the action that needs to be taken. Now, in Wilmington is kind of a special case. One of the things that we found out early on is that because it's a small market and it's surrounded by bigger markets, if you're on the fringe of the Wilmington market, you may be picking up television stations, one or two stations, that actually aren't Wilmington television stations. So this creates in Wilmington the special situation where people might see two spots, one saying that the transition is happening on February 17, 2009, and another spot that says the transition is happening on September 8, 2008. So we need to make sure that folks knew that they were affected by this, and we think that the broadcasters have been doing a very, very good job of letting people know what the date is here.
Are all the stations in the area ready for this change?
Oh, the stations here have been ready, yeah. I mean, one of the television stations, WILM, which is the CBS affiliate, had just finished constructing their digital tower back in August. They have a better signal than ever. The same thing with the NBC affiliate, WECT. They're up on a new tower. So all of the technical side of this is more or less actually the technical side of it is taken care of. One of the things that we find is that there has to be a lot of coordination with the cable and the satellite providers in a given market in order to make sure that the technical side of this is taken care of before the actual transition takes place.
I don't know if this is directly in your purview, but is HANA a concern for the people you talk with, not only amongst the broadcasters, but the other groups that you work with? Is that going to affect things?
Well, I tell you what, I mean, the stations have always said that a test like this would not jeopardize their local commitments to their viewers and to their communities, and in no way jeopardize public safety. So that's going to be determined. I mean, if HANA turns into something awful, they're going to weigh that, and they're going to consider postponing it. But I mean, that's something that the stations are going to have to decide. And you know, one of the things that they fully realize is that they take that commitment to their community very, very seriously, and they're not going to let an experiment like this get in the way of making sure that people know that a storm is coming.
How long have you been there, personally?
Oh, I came down to Wilmington a couple days ago. I work out of Washington, D.C., but I've been in Wilmington for the last 2 days.
And how long have National Association of Broadcaster folks been there?
Here in Wilmington?
Yes.
Oh, we've had staff on the ground. We've had one staffer on the ground, probably for the full, if you consider the full 2 weeks before September 8th. We will have one staff on the ground. And we also have that DTV Trekker truck, which is making appearances at retailers and going all around the DMA.
What's the activities for your group, whether it be the trucker truck, whether it be the people? What kind of things are you doing in this weekend leading up to the transition date?
Well, there's still some coordination that needs to be done. The stations obviously need to make a decision on what they're going to do with this hurricane. We have the Trekker, the truck that's in town that's going to different retailers and making folks aware of DTV as they go into consumer electronics retailers. We're also going to be in the field with a survey the night of September 8th, and we're also going to be doing some in-person interviews around that time also, just to try to get an idea of what the real life issues were that the people had with the transition, whether everything went well for them, and what we can really learn from this moving forward to February 17, 2009.
So there'll be some post-day activities for you. It's not like come the 12:01 on September 8th you'll leave town.
It's never that easy. No, my previous life was as a political campaign operative, and and the job isn't always done on election day, so to speak. So there's still some work, and there's still pulling together everything that we've learned and trying to figure out what the lessons are for 6 months from now.
If you had to, we asked Jonathan or Louis Sagalos this from the FCC, but if you had to gauge a measure of success for you, how would you gauge that? What would you say is successful as far as the broadcasters are concerned?
Well, nationally, the goal has always been to make sure that folks know about the DTV transition. I mean, you can tell people about it, but you can't force them to take action. A broadcaster can't get everybody down and get them in the car and down to the store to buy a converter box. So our goal was always to make sure that folks knew about the DTV transition and didn't lose reception due to a lack of information about the transition. So that's always been the goal. In Wilmington, it's a little bit more complicated, specifically for that reason that I said. A lot of people in the western part of the market view television from Myrtle Beach. So they don't watch it from Wilmington. And if those folks don't upgrade, I mean, do you consider that to be a failure of the campaign? So a lot of that stuff, it gets a little bit complicated, specifically with Wilmington, in a way that's not going to be complicated in February 17, 2009, and that's why we need to weigh all of those things. Measuring the success here is going to be complicated and nuanced. It's not just going to be a matter of figuring out the number of people who ordered coupons.
Jonathan Collegio is the DTV Transition Vice President for the National Association of Broadcasters, one of many groups, including cable and other groups, involved in education efforts for this transition. Mr. Collegio, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
The mayor of Wilmington, North Carolina, is Bill Saffo. And Mr. Mayor, your thoughts on the impending hurricane and what this does for the transition date?
Well, we're looking at it. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, we'll be meeting with our emergency management officials and determining what kind of plan that we will be putting into action here locally. When we talked about this digital transition at the announcement ceremony in Washington, we had shared our concerns with the chairman at that time, Kevin Martin and his staff, in the respect that, we are in hurricane season. The transition will take place during that hurricane season. And he has assured us that if we have an imminent threat or an event such as a hurricane or a tropical storm, that we would not make that transition. Obviously, the way this thing looks right now is that Hannah will make its way through the Carolina coast sometime Saturday or early Sunday. Obviously, the transition is due to take place at 12 o'clock on Monday. So at some time today, I guess the FCC will have to make that determination as to whether we go or don't go on Monday.
Is it a case where you could call up the FCC if you're not comfortable and say, Mr. Chairman, I have real hesitancy about this happening, and could we change the date?
Sure we can. Obviously, they're very sensitive concerns down here, along with the emergency management officials down in this particular area. And if we feel that we don't want to make this change until after, sometime the latter part of next week, then I believe the chairman would go along with that. Right now, we're going to play it hour by hour and make the determination sometime later today whether we're going to go or don't go. But the other thing that the FCC chairman has promised us here locally is even after we make the change, that the local broadcasters in our particular market here will still have the analog capabilities, because we have so many people in our area that have battery-powered analog TVs. And obviously, when we lose power down here, a lot of those citizens get all of their information, or most of their information, from those TV sets. So we will have the capabilities, even after we make the switch, that if we do have a hurricane, because we have 2 other systems that are brewing down in the Atlantic, that we could then switch back over to an analog system in the event of an emergency, which is a good thing for us. And I think, to congratulate the FCC and thank them for allowing us to have those capabilities.
Besides the FCC and yourself, what other groups are going to be involved in this decision?
Well, we have all of the emergency management officials in the local area, as well as all the county commissioners. We have 3 other municipalities at Riceville Beach, Curie Beach, Carolina Beach, that are in New Hanover County. We will be coordinating with our efforts with the other counties here, Brunswick County, Pender County, Bladen County, and Columbus County, the other counties that will be involved in discussions this afternoon.
Mr. Mayor,
during this session of this meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock, we all sit around the table. We have our plan. We have a plan of action ready to go in the event that this thing moves forward, which it looks like it will be. And then we will make a determination as a group what to do.
Mayor Saffo, have you been satisfied about the type of education that your residents have received about this transition date?
Yes. I think the FCC has done a great job, has brought a lot of resources to our communities. I know that they put a person in every community, tremendous outreach on their behalf, working with the local elected officials, emergency management folks, going to senior citizen centers, talking to civic groups, just getting the information out, as well as working with the local broadcasters and what the local broadcasters have done. Because, the local broadcasters were the ones that volunteered to do this. They didn't have to do it. And since we were the first in the nation and, lack of a better word, we are the guinea pigs for the entire country, they have done a tremendous job in getting that information out and making certain that we have what they call a big switch moment or a minute down here doing usually every broadcast, letting people know what to do and what not to do. In fact, the NBC affiliate, WECT here, 2 nights ago ran a 5-minute test where a screen came on that indicated if you were digitally hooked up or you were not digitally hooked up. And I understand from the station manager there, after that particular 5-minute test, that we had 10 people that called just his station indicating that they were not hooked up and what to do and how to do the hookup to the converter box. In fact, some of those people, and what the FCC has also found out through this process down here is even when you make that conversion box, even when you bring the conversion box and you hook it up, we're still having some problems. And there are nuances such as if you have a satellite or an antenna, on your roof, if it's not adjusted properly, it could throw off the signal. And making small adjustments like that, was something that the FCC was not prepared for, but has since, gotten a lot of information as to what they need to do once they hook up those converter boxes.
I read somewhere that some of the residents, I guess, in Wilmington felt a little overwhelmed with the type of or the amount of information that they were receiving about this transition day. Would you agree about that?
Yeah, there's been some commentary that says we've been over-inundated with information about making certain that we have got the switch, in regards to the date of September the 8th and making certain that everybody's prepared to go. You can always say, maybe they did too much, but I don't think so. I think, it's invariably just like a lot of things, some people wait to the very last moment to get the converter boxes. And what we found was people that waited to the last moment to get the converter boxes are not going to have to wait possibly, 10 days before they can get the converter boxes here. And that's, I think, another thing that the FCC picked up from this exercise was that since the entire country is going to be going on the same day, waiting till the last moment to get your box is going to be a bad situation for a lot of people because they're not going to have TVs. They're not going to have that signal coming in because they didn't get their boxes in time. So, that's another thing that we want to make sure that information is out there and getting people hooked up early enough that if they do have a problem with that signal, that we have time to get out there and get those things fixed, or they have time enough to call people and find out what the problem is. Something else that we're doing here locally in using our resources locally is that we know after we make the switch, we're going to have a certain amount of people, no matter what's happened, are going to tell us that, something is wrong with their TV sets. We're going to be using local firemen in our city, the city of Wilmington, training them and showing them what needs to be done, which they've already been trained how to hook up these boxes. And if they call the FCC number, they would be directed to call the fire station. Fire station would then go out there, or the fireman would go out there to the house. And this would be a twofold exercise. When the fire person or fire personnel gets to the person's house, they will not only look at the box, make sure the box is hooked up properly, but also check their fire alarms or their smoke detectors. Make certain that their batteries updated. So this was something that we came up with, and an idea that we worked with the FCC in making certain that we had some way that we could get to those people, help those people once the switch was made if they didn't have the box hooked up properly.
For those who may know, how much of the residents of Wilmington is gone cable or satellite or something like that, and how many people, or at least give a percentage of how many people still get their TV over with an antenna?
Well, in this particular marketplace, the indicators, or what we have seen, the numbers are that we're 94% already hooked up. If obviously, if you're on cable, you have cable now, or you receive your transmission through satellite, you're going to be fine. But we found that there's about 7% of our populace, not only in the Wilmington area, but in our surrounding 5 counties, that are not hooked up to a cable or satellite. So we've got about a 7%, give or take, 7% of the populace in this area, several thousand people that do not have it. Now, from what we understand from the folks that are distributing the boxes and what have you, there's been a lot of boxes that have been distributed in the area. The concern that we have, or the things that we have seen, is in the rural areas where people live further apart. Maybe there's people that are shut-ins or senior citizens that don't have a lot of visitation, getting those boxes to those particular people. We've been working with Wheels on Meals, senior citizen centers. The National Black Church Initiative came to town and went out to, I think we have about 2,000 churches in the 5-county area, making certain all the pastors are aware of it, get that information out to their congregations. And so we've been working diligently to try to get that information and get to those people that may not have access to transportation to get the box. But we feel that we've had a pretty good penetration rate, because even the people that have that maybe do not or have not received the boxes as of yet, that have the rabbit ears, are still looking and watching the shows, and they have to be seeing what the broadcasters are putting over the airways, telling people to get prepared for this. So we just kept broadcasting it and putting it out there, and maybe some people feel that it was too much, but I would rather decide on the side of caution, as they say, as opposed to just taking it for granted that people are aware of it.
Have you planned for what happens after the transition as far as post activities? I know you mentioned a lot of forces in there. Also, is there a number that the city of Wilmington has set up specifically for folks to call rather than calling the FCC or the broadcasters? Is there a direct line to your office, or at least someone in your office who can answer questions?
We would direct those calls back to the FCC or to the local fire departments. Right now, to make it as efficient as possible, we're going to use one number. And that number will come across your screen on the TV. So once a switch is made, let's just say we go on Monday at 12 o'clock and they make the switch, something will come across your TV screen that will basically tell you what number to call. And to have one central number and have those folks, that answer those calls, direct those calls to the different locations. Because, remember, we're talking about a 5-county area, not just the city of Wilmington, County of New Hanover, but the other areas where those calls will be coming in from.
How confident are you right now?
I feel pretty confident. It's just like now when we're preparing for this possible hurricane and tropical storm that's going to be coming through. We've done a lot of planning. We've done a lot of outreach. And I feel that we've penetrated the market and we've gotten the information out to as many people, or I would say, I want to hopefully say 100% of the populace that's been watching TVs or watching transmissions over TV. But, we also know, we're realistic, we're going to miss some folks, or some boxes are not going to work, or some people have hooked up the boxes wrong. We just, there's going to be a percentage of the populace that's just not going to do it right or has not prepared for it. And, we've just got to be prepared that after the switch happens that we can get to those people and get those TVs and get those converter boxes hooked up as quickly as possible.
Bill Saffo is the mayor of Wilmington, North Carolina, the first area of the United States to transition its television stations from analog to digital. Mr. Saffo, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The Communicators talking about the transition in Wilmington, North Carolina. One more perspective. Dan Ulmer is the chief engineer for WECT and WSFX. Mr. Ulmer, is your station ready, and can you generally talk about how the other stations are ready as far as the technical aspects of the transition?
Yes, we are ready for WECT and WSFX. WECT has been broadcasting an HD signal for almost 4 years now, and WSFX for a couple years. Our competitor, the ABC affiliate WWAY, they're ready and have had a good signal on the air. And WILM has just joined the group just a few weeks ago and are now broadcasting in HD.
When we talk about the technical aspects, what goes into preparation on your end?
Well, since our HD transmitter was already on the air, one thing that we had discovered, though, is that our signal on our side mount antenna was not reaching all our viewers. And I brought this up to the attention of our company, Raycom, and we got plans quickly in place and moved tower sites before the transition. So we have a much better signal now from a higher tower site, and we're reaching our viewers much better. And this was all done just in the last 30 days. So, you know, we had to do some adjustments. The other thing is that we built out our HD control room, which we just launched this past Sunday. And we wanted to have that ready so that we could provide our viewers with a better quality signal.
As far as the hurricane or the pending concerns about hurricanes, technically, does that concern you, and are there worries specifically on the technical matters as far as storms are concerned?
We're actually better prepared for a hurricane now than we ever were before. We have so many of our viewers now on converter boxes watching our HD signal. And on 12 noon on Monday, we will put patches in that will interrupt the signal to our analog transmitter with a message to let any viewers that haven't converted yet know that that signal is no longer available and they need to move to converter boxes or an HD TV or a cable or satellite service. But we can pull that patch just as quickly as we put it in. We'll be running the transmitters in analog for another 30 days after that, and we can pull that patch anytime and proceed providing news and information to our viewers should emergency weather require it.
And so finally, how has your station specifically educated the public? Have there been special news reports? I know that your website offers some information, but what has the station specifically done?
Well, it's been a tremendous effort that's really involved everybody in the station. And one of the things we did early on is I put together a 4-page white paper, which we have on our website, and we email to viewers that have questions and provide it at the front desk and send it out to community organizations and everybody in the station. We've educated first on HD television, so we all were able to provide the same story and information. And then the news departments has been all over it with news stories in every newscast. They started a franchise called the Digital Minute, and every day they cover some aspect of the transition in every newscast. We've been running crawls on the air. We've been running an extensive promotional effort, and one of the things we had to overcome was the February 17th date, and I think we've done that successfully. The FCC's also helped a great deal in the NAB, and there's been billboards and radio ads, and it's just been a very extensive effort.
Dan Ulmer is the chief engineer for WECT and WSFX. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
And that's it for the Communicators this week. Join us again next week as we follow up and talk about these and other issues. Remember, you can watch the Communicators Saturdays at 6:30 in the evening on C-SPAN, and Mondays 2 times, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on C-SPAN 2. Thanks for watching.